Tyrell's heart raced as he stepped into the sleek, polished sneaker store, a place he dreamed of since he first picked up a pencil to sketch his own designs. But within seconds, the judgmental eyes of a smug salesman turned his excitement into something else entirely: humiliation. Little did they know, the quiet teen in scuffed sneakers was about to rewrite the rules of the game. The glass doors of the high-end sneaker store gleamed under the bright lights of the mall. Tyrell, a 17-year-old with a quiet determination, stepped inside. His hoodie, slightly faded but clean, hung loosely over his slim frame. Scuffed sneakers adorned his feet, shoes he had been saving to replace. He glanced at the pristine displays, admiring the vibrant designs and intricate craftsmanship. This wasn't just a shopping trip. It was inspiration for his dream of designing his own sneaker line. The store exuded wealth. Polished marble floors reflected the neon lighting, and well-dressed customers strolled leisurely, browsing the rows of exclusive sneakers. Tyrell felt out of place but stayed focused. He approached a display showcasing a sleek pair of limited edition shoes, carefully studying the intricate stitching. From across the store, Eric, the tall, smug salesperson, spotted him. Dressed in a crisp shirt and tailored pants, Eric's expression twisted into a condescending smirk. He nudged a fellow employee and muttered, "Another window shopper. Bet he's not buying anything." Tyrell, oblivious to the mocking whispers, continued examining the sneakers. His fingers traced the edge of the sole as he mentally dissected the design. Eric, unable to resist, strode over, his voice dripping with fake politeness. "Can I help you, kid?" Tyrell looked up, startled but polite. "Just checking these out. I'm into sneaker design," he said, his tone calm and genuine. Eric raised an eyebrow, barely hiding his disdain. "Design? That's cute," he said, his words loud enough to draw the attention of nearby customers. "You might want to start small, maybe something more affordable." The comment stung, but Tyrell held his composure. "I'm just here to learn," he replied, standing his ground. Eric scoffed and waved dismissively. "Sure you are, but these aren't knockoffs, kid. They don't come cheap." He chuckled, turning away as if the conversation wasn't worth continuing. Other customers began to glance over. Some smirked, entertained by Eric's arrogance. Others shifted uncomfortably, aware of the cruelty in his tone. Tyrell's cheeks flushed, but he refused to let the humiliation show. "I'm not here to waste time," Tyrell said, his voice steady. "I'm here because I have a vision." Eric froze for a moment, surprised by the confidence in Tyrell's words, but the smirk quickly returned. "Well, good luck with that, champ," he said sarcastically before walking away. As Tyrell turned to leave, he heard whispers from the other customers. His hands tightened into fists, but he took a deep breath, calming himself. Outside the store, he paused, staring down at his old sneakers. The humiliation lingered, but so did something stronger, a spark of determination. "I'll show them," he muttered under his breath, walking away with his head held high. Tyrell pushed open the front door to his modest home, the creak of the hinges breaking the heavy silence in his chest. His mother, Denise, was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. The warmth of the room contrasted sharply with the cold sting of the humiliation still clinging to him. "Hey, baby," Denise called, glancing over her shoulder. She paused, noticing the tension in Tyrell's face. "Rough day?" Tyrell nodded, dropping his bag by the couch. "Yeah, something like that." Denise wiped her hands on a towel and walked over, her eyes full of concern. "What happened?" Tyrell hesitated. He didn't want to seem weak, but the weight of Eric's words sat heavy on his chest. "I went to that sneaker store at the mall. The guy there, he looked at me like I didn't belong, said I couldn't afford anything." Denise's expression tightened. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice calm but firm. "And what did you do?" "I walked away," Tyrell said, shrugging. "But it got to me, Ma. I just wanted to look, to learn. And he made me feel like I was wasting my time." Denise guided him to sit down at the kitchen table, pulling up a chair beside him. "Let me tell you something about people like that," she said. "They see what's on the surface. But you, Tyrell, you're more than they'll ever know. You've got talent, you've got vision, and no one can take that from you." Her words ignited a small spark in Tyrell's chest. He glanced over at the sketch pad, peeking out of his bag. "Sometimes I wonder if it's enough," he admitted. "I mean, look at this house. Look at my shoes. How am I supposed to make them see what I can do?" Denise smiled gently. "You don't need to make them see. You just need to keep going. Let your work speak for itself." Later that evening, Tyrell sat on the floor of his room, surrounded by scattered sketches and half-finished sneaker designs. He picked up his pencil, staring at the blank page in front of him. The echoes of Eric's mockery rang in his ears, but alongside them came his mother's voice. "Let your work speak for itself." He began to sketch. His pencil moved with a purpose he hadn't felt before. Clean lines, bold curves, innovative designs. He envisioned sneakers that were stylish yet affordable, made for kids like him, dreamers who wanted more, but didn't have the means. His walls were already covered in inspiration, photos of classic sneaker designs, motivational quotes, and a framed picture of his late father. Tyrell's dad had been an artist, known for his vibrant paintings. Tyrell could almost hear him saying, "Create something that means something." By midnight, Tyrell had filled several pages with designs. He leaned back, staring at his work. For the first time that day, he smiled. The next morning, Denise found him asleep at his desk, his head resting on the sketch pad. She picked it up carefully, flipping through the pages. Her breath caught at the creativity and detail. "Baby," she whispered, brushing a hand over his curls, "you're going to change the world." Tyrell stirred, blinking up at her. "Not yet," he said groggily, "but I'm going to try." His determination had transformed the sting of humiliation into a fuel he couldn't ignore. It was a Saturday morning when Tyrell stood outside the local community center, clutching his portfolio of sneaker designs. The sun shone brightly, but his nerves were a storm inside. The flyer in his hand read, "Business Seminar. Meet industry leaders and learn to pitch your ideas." His mom's words echoed in his head. "Let your work speak for itself." Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside, greeted by the hum of conversations and the scent of freshly brewed coffee. The room was filled with people, some in tailored suits, others in smart casual attire. Tyrell felt out of place in his hoodie and jeans, but he reminded himself why he was there. He wasn't here to blend in, he was here to stand out. As the seminar began, he listened intently to the speakers, scribbling notes about branding, networking, and pitching ideas. It was all new to him, but he soaked up every word. Then during a break, he noticed an older man in the corner of the room, surrounded by a small group of attendees. The man exuded authority, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed, a polished watch glinting on his wrist. Curiosity got the better of Tyrell. He walked over, clutching his portfolio tightly. The man, Mr. Carter, noticed him and offered a warm smile. "What brings you here, young man?" Tyrell hesitated for a moment, but then found his voice. "I'm Tyrell. I design sneakers and I'm trying to start my own brand." Mr. Carter raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Sneakers, huh? Let's see what you got." Tyrell opened his portfolio with trembling hands, revealing his designs. Each page was filled with intricate sketches, bold color schemes, and innovative features. Mr. Carter's expression shifted from curiosity to genuine interest. "These are impressive," he said, flipping through the pages. "You've got a real eye for design. Where did you learn this?" Tyrell shrugged, his voice modest. "I taught myself. I just want to make sneakers that look good but don't cost a fortune." Mr. Carter chuckled. "You remind me of myself when I was starting out. Passionate, determined, and a little rough around the edges." He paused, then added, "Have you ever pitched these to anyone before?" Tyrell shook his head. "Number, I didn't think anyone would take me seriously." "Well," Mr. Carter said, "you're wrong about that. I think you've got something here." Over the next hour, Mr. Carter became Tyrell's unexpected mentor. He shared stories of his own journey as a sneaker executive, from the challenges he faced to the mistakes he made. He gave Tyrell practical advice on branding, sourcing materials, and targeting the right audience. But the real turning point came when Mr. Carter made a life-changing offer. "I know some people who'd be interested in this," he said, handing Tyrell his business card. "If you're serious about this, I can connect you to them. They can help you get started, but the hard work will still be on you." Tyrell's heart raced as he took the card. "Thank you," he said earnestly. "I won't let you down." True to his word, Mr. Carter introduced Tyrell to a small group of investors. At their first meeting, Tyrell pitched his vision nervously but passionately, showing them his designs and explaining his mission to make sneakers accessible to everyone. The investors were impressed. They offered a modest investment to produce a limited run of Tyrell's sneakers, with the condition that he market them independently to gauge public interest. Tyrell agreed, overwhelmed with gratitude and excitement. With the Funds secured, Tyrell dove into the production process. He spent late nights choosing materials, perfecting designs, and coordinating with manufacturers. At the same time, he created a social media page for his brand, sharing his journey with authenticity. His posts quickly gained traction. Videos of him sketching designs, visiting factories, and talking about his mission resonated with young audiences. Comments flooded in. "This is so inspiring. Finally, someone making sneakers for the rest of us. Can't wait to buy these." Within weeks, Tyrell's follower count skyrocketed, and the buzz around his brand grew louder. One night, as he scrolled through the comments, he realized something. This wasn't just a passion project anymore. It was becoming a movement. Tyrell stared at his latest design, now a prototype on his desk. He thought back to the ridicule he faced at the sneaker store. That moment, once a source of pain, now fueled his resolve. He was no longer just a kid with a dream. He was building something bigger, a brand with a purpose. The mall seemed busier than ever as Tyrell walked through its polished floors, the buzz of weekend shoppers echoing around him. But this time, Tyrell wasn't the nervous teen being mocked for his worn sneakers. He strode confidently, his head held high, wearing a sleek, custom-fit jacket and brand-new sneakers. His sneakers. In his hand, he carried a single prototype, the culmination of late nights, unwavering determination, and a belief in himself that had weathered every doubt. The golden logo gleamed on the shoe's tongue, a quiet but powerful symbol of what he had built. When Tyrell stepped into the sneaker store, the air inside felt as cold as the last time he'd been there. Rows of high-end sneakers lined the walls, and the faint smell of fresh leather hung in the air. But the memory of that humiliating encounter with Eric was still sharp in his mind. Eric, stationed at the counter, was leaning casually against the register, scrolling through his phone. He looked up briefly when Tyrell entered but didn't recognize him at first. The store was packed with customers, and Eric's usual smug demeanor was on full display as he chatted with a group of shoppers. Tyrell walked toward the same display rack he had visited before, this time with a quiet confidence. He picked up one of the sneakers and studied it for a moment before placing his prototype beside it on the counter. Eric's voice cut through the air, sharp and familiar. "Back again?" He walked over, a smirk creeping across his face. "Let me guess, still looking for inspiration?" His tone dripped with sarcasm, drawing the attention of nearby customers. This time, Tyrell didn't flinch. He turned to Eric and calmly replied, "Actually, I'm here to offer something." The simplicity of the statement threw Eric off. He blinked, glancing at the sneaker Tyrell had placed on the counter. "What's this?" he asked, his voice laced with skepticism. "It's mine," Tyrell said evenly. "I designed it. I'm launching my own sneaker line." Eric laughed, the sound loud and mocking. "Yours? Seriously? You think you can compete with these brands?" He gestured to the walls lined with luxury sneakers. Tyrell didn't respond. He didn't need to. Instead, he stood there quietly, letting the room take him in. The scene caught the attention of a young woman browsing nearby. She gasped and exclaimed, "Wait, are you Tyrell? I follow you on Instagram. You're the guy who's been making those amazing sneakers, right?" Suddenly, the mood shifted. Customers began gathering around, murmuring and pointing at Tyrell. A few pulled out their phones, snapping pictures of him and the prototype. Eric's smug expression faltered as he realized Tyrell wasn't just some random kid anymore. He was someone people recognized, someone important. One customer picked up Tyrell's sneaker and examined it closely. "This is incredible, SI1, they said. "I've been waiting for your launch." Eric's face turned red. "Look," he stammered, "this is a sneaker store. If you're not buying anything—" Before he could finish, Tyrell cut him off. "Everyone deserves respect," he said firmly, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Whether they're here to buy something or not. Maybe that's a lesson you should learn." The crowd murmured in agreement, their eyes shifting from Eric to Tyrell with admiration. The video cameras were rolling now, capturing every moment. Eric tried to salvage his composure, but the damage was done. His arrogance had backfired, and the attention was no longer on him. It was on Tyrell, the young man who had walked in as a symbol of humility and walked out as a symbol of triumph. Tyrell took one last look at Eric, not with anger, but with calm resolve. He had proven his point without lowering himself to Eric's level. As he left the store, the cheers and applause of the crowd followed him out. The video of Tyrell's encounter at the sneaker store exploded across social media within hours. The clip began with Eric's smug, dismissive comments and ended with Tyrell standing tall, his prototype sneaker held confidently in his hand as a growing crowd cheered around him. The caption read, "Kid's shame for his sneakers comes back, owning the game." Comments poured in by the thousands. This is the energy we need in 2025. Never judge someone by their shoes, unless they made them. Respect to this young king. Eric should take notes. Within days, the video hit millions of views. Influencers and celebrities reposted it, adding their own takes about perseverance, respect, and the power of self-belief. Tyrell's Instagram, which had been slowly growing, suddenly skyrocketed to tens of thousands of followers. Notifications flooded in so fast his phone couldn't keep up. Meanwhile, the sneaker store wasn't faring so well. The comments section of their official page was flooded with backlash. People demanded accountability for Eric's actions, tagging the store in posts like, "Is this how you treat customers? I'm never shopping here again. Do better. Shame on you for employing someone like this." Tyrell, scrolling through the uproar with his mom, shook his head. "This wasn't the point," he said softly, setting his phone down. Denise placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes change needs a wake-up call," she replied. "You didn't create this. You just shined a light on it." At the store, Eric was feeling the heat. His smug confidence had evaporated. Managers had pulled him aside for a serious conversation, and he'd been asked to take a leave of absence while they investigated the incident. Walking out of the store with his head low, Eric felt the sting of judgment he'd once so carelessly dished out. As for Tyrell, he stayed true to himself. He refused to let the viral moment define him. Instead, he focused on the work ahead. "This isn't about revenge," he told a local journalist who interviewed him about the viral clip. "It's about showing that respect and humility matter more than labels or appearances. Everyone deserves a chance to be seen for who they are, not what they wear." The journalist's article painted Tyrell as a symbol of resilience. It highlighted his journey, his designs, and his determination to make sneakers accessible to everyone, regardless of their background. The article ended with Tyrell's quote, "Walk your own path, no matter how many people doubt you." At the same time, Tyrell's story resonated deeply with the public. The backlash against Eric shifted into a broader conversation about biases in retail spaces and how often people are judged by their appearance. Soon after, Tyrell received an unexpected call. A renowned sneaker brand wanted to collaborate with him for a limited edition release. They admired his authenticity, creativity, and the message he stood for. Tyrell hesitated at first. He didn't want his vision to be compromised. But after a long discussion with Mr. Carter, they agreed to terms that would ensure his brand's independence while benefiting from the collaboration's exposure. When the collaboration was announced, it broke the internet. Tyrell's sneakers became a hot commodity, selling out in minutes. Meanwhile, Tyrell decided to donate a portion of the profits to programs supporting young entrepreneurs, ensuring others like him would have a chance to shine. As Eric scrolled through the headlines and watched the flood of praise Tyrell was receiving, he couldn't ignore the lesson staring him in the face. The young man he'd mocked wasn't just talented, he was a force for good. For Tyrell, the moment wasn't about proving Eric wrong, it was about proving himself right. The day Tyrell had dreamed of had finally arrived. The community center buzzed with energy, its hall transformed into a vibrant celebration of innovation, resilience, and dreams realized. Bright banners hung from the ceiling, each one displaying Tyrell's sneaker logo, a bold, minimalist design that captured the essence of his journey. Beneath it was his slogan, "Walk your own path." As guests filed in, the excitement was palpable. Influencers, local artists, and sneaker enthusiasts filled the space, chatting eagerly about Tyrell's story. A small stage stood at the center, with displays of Tyrell's sneakers flanking both sides. Rows of chairs faced the stage, but most of the crowd stood, cameras ready to capture every moment. Behind the curtain, Tyrell paced nervously. Dressed in a sleek black blazer, white tee, and his signature sneakers, he looked the part of a young entrepreneur. but his hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the mic clipped to his collar. "You've got this," Denise said, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. Her eyes glistened with pride. "This isn't just about shoes. It's about your heart, your vision. Let them see that." Mr. Carter nodded in agreement, his tone warm and encouraging. "They're not here just for the sneakers, Tyrell. They're here for you. Show them the passion that got you here." When Tyrell finally stepped onto the stage, the crowd erupted into applause. Cameras flashed, and chants of his name echoed through the hall. Tyrell's throat tightened, but he took a deep breath and began. "Thank you all for being here today," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "This isn't just my launch. It's a celebration of everyone who's ever been underestimated, everyone who's ever been told they couldn't achieve their dreams. This is for us." The crowd fell silent, captivated by his words. Tyrell shared his journey, the rough sketches in his childhood bedroom, the inspiration from his father's entrepreneurial spirit, and even the painful encounter at the sneaker store that had ignited his determination. "I could have let that moment crush me," he admitted, scanning the room. "But instead, I chose to use it as fuel, because no one gets to define my worth but me." The audience erupted in cheers, some standing to applaud. With a nod to his team, Tyrell unveiled the sneakers. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight illuminated the display cases. Inside were rows of sleek, stylish sneakers in vibrant colors and bold designs. Each pair was crafted with meticulous attention to detail, blending comfort and fashion in a way that felt entirely unique. The crowd surged forward, snapping photos and marveling at the craftsmanship. A few lucky guests, handpicked from Tyrell's social media followers, were invited on stage to try on the sneakers. Their reactions, wide smiles and genuine awe, spoke louder than words. As the first orders went live online, Tyrell watched the numbers climb rapidly. The limited edition collection sold out within minutes, each pair finding a home with someone who believed in his vision. At the community center, lines formed at the merch tables, where people clamored to buy not just sneakers, but t-shirts and hats bearing Tyrell's logo. Midway through the event, Tyrell stepped back on stage for one final announcement. "This isn't just about business for me," he said. "It's about giving back. A portion of every sale will go toward funding art and entrepreneurship programs for kids in underserved communities, because everyone deserves the chance to dream big." The crowd roared in approval. Journalists scrambled to take notes, while influencers posted live updates, praising Tyrell not just as a designer, but as a role model. As the event wound down, Tyrell found a quiet corner to catch his breath. Denise joined him, her smile wide. "Your dad would have been so proud," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thanks, Mom," Tyrell replied, his own eyes glistening. "But this is just the beginning." In that moment, Tyrell felt the weight of the journey ahead. He wasn't just building a brand, he was building a legacy. The viral video had turned Eric's world upside down. Sitting in his dimly lit apartment, he scrolled through countless comments on the clip of Tyrell's triumphant moment in the sneaker store. Some comments stung more than others. "Shame on that salesperson. This is why you never judge a book by its cover. He got what he deserved." Eric let out a long sigh, his pride taking a back seat to the guilt welling up inside him. He had been wrong, terribly wrong. The next morning, with trembling hands, Eric typed a message to Tyrell on social media. "I owe you an apology," it began. He hesitated before hitting send, but knew it was the right thing to do. To his surprise, Tyrell responded within hours. "Meet me tomorrow." 2 p.m. at the store. When Eric arrived, Tyrell was already there, surrounded by staff and fans excitedly discussing his upcoming collection. Eric swallowed hard as he walked up to him. "Tyrell," he began, his voice shaking. "I'm sorry, I was out of line. I judged you unfairly, and I let my own biases cloud my judgment." Tyrell studied him for a moment, his expression unreadable. "You embarrassed me," he finally said. "But more than that, you embarrassed yourself." Eric nodded, shame washing over him. "I know, and I want to make it right if you'll let me." Tyrell crossed his arms, considering his words. "Actions speak louder than words, Eric. Apologies are a start, but what you do next matters more." Then, to Eric's astonishment, Tyrell extended an olive branch. "I could use someone to help with logistics for my next launch. If you're serious about proving yourself, here's your chance." Eric blinked in disbelief. "You'd really give me a second chance? After how I treated you?" "Everyone deserves the chance to grow," Tyrell said simply. The weeks that followed weren't easy for Eric. Tyrell held him to a high standard, expecting nothing less than excellence. Eric started from the bottom, assisting with shipments, inventory, and event planning. It was humbling work, but it gave him a newfound respect for the effort Tyrell had poured into his brand. One afternoon, as they worked on organizing a community event, Eric hesitated. Before speaking, "You know," he began, "I used to think success only looked one way. Expensive clothes, flashy things. But you've shown me it's about more than that." Tyrell glanced at him, a small smile forming. "Success isn't about what you wear, Eric. It's about what you build and who you help along the way." Slowly but surely, Eric began to change. He greeted every customer with respect, no matter how they looked. He volunteered to help with Tyrell's youth programs, assisting kids with their own entrepreneurial dreams. At one such event, Eric watched as a young boy proudly showed Tyrell his hand-drawn sneaker designs. For the first time in a long time, Eric felt something other than guilt. He felt purpose. Months later, Tyrell invited Eric to a private celebration, marking the success of his first sneaker line. As Tyrell raised a glass to thank his team, he singled Eric out. "This guy here," Tyrell said, pointing to Eric with a grin, "he's proof that second chances can create something amazing." The crowd applauded, and Eric felt a warmth he hadn't known before. It wasn't just redemption, it was belonging. Months later, Tyrell stood on the stage of a packed community center. The air buzzed with excitement, the sound of laughter and chatter filling the room. Bright lights reflected off the shiny floor, where kids proudly wore his sneakers, their faces lit with joy and hope. Tyrell adjusted the microphone and scanned the crowd. He spotted his mom, Denise, beaming with pride from the front row. Beside her sat Mr. Carter, clapping along as the audience cheered for Tyrell's success. "Thank you all for being here," Tyrell began, his voice steady but full of emotion. "This journey started with a sketch on my bedroom floor. I didn't have much, just big dreams and a lot of determination." The crowd erupted in applause, but Tyrell raised his hand gently to quiet them. "But this isn't just about me," he said. "It's about the kids in this room, the ones who think success is out of reach because of where they come from or how they look. I'm here to tell you it's not." He paused, letting his words sink in. His sneakers, emblazoned with the slogan, "Walk Your Own Path," had become more than just footwear. They were a movement. Behind Tyrell, a projector screen lit up with images of the initiatives his brand had funded: a free sneaker design workshop for underprivileged kids, community grants for young entrepreneurs, and financial literacy programs for families. "We've sold out of sneakers twice," Tyrell continued, his voice rising with passion. "But the real win is seeing these kids here today, believing they can do something great. Because they can." In the crowd, a young boy in a wheelchair raised his hand. Tyrell smiled and pointed to him. "Go ahead, buddy." "How do you keep going when people doubt you?" the boy asked, his voice small but steady. Tyrell stepped down from the stage and walked toward the boy, kneeling so they were eye to eye. The room grew silent. "People will doubt you," Tyrell said softly, his words carrying weight. "They'll laugh, they'll judge, and they'll try to make you feel small. But their opinions don't define you. What defines you is how you respond. Keep your head up. Keep pushing forward. Prove them wrong." The boy nodded, his eyes shining with inspiration. The crowd erupted into cheers again, but Tyrell wasn't done. He walked back to the stage, his gaze sweeping over the room. "I was once that kid," he said. "I walked into a store, and someone tried to make me feel like I didn't belong. But I turned that moment into a reason to fight harder. And now here we are, together, proving that respect, determination, and kindness are what really matter." As the event wrapped up, Tyrell walked through the crowd, shaking hands and taking pictures with fans. Eric was among the volunteers, helping kids try on sneakers and handing out water bottles. He caught Tyrell's eye and gave a small, grateful nod. Outside the center, the final scene unfolded. Tyrell sat on a bench with his mom, watching kids leave with sneakers and smiles. "You did it," Denise said, her voice filled with pride. Tyrell leaned back, staring at the night sky. "We did it, Mom, and this is just the beginning." Above the community center entrance, A banner swayed in the breeze reading, "Walk your own path, a legacy of hope."